Hello, everyone, and I'm about to get started. What's up, everybody? I am here waiting on my guest, Dr. Vernon Wright, and I want to see. I've been having the weirdest trouble lately, and I don't know what's going on. We're getting my guest on. Let's just see. It could be just human error. Ooh, sounds like my mic is too high. Let's see. Testing, testing. How about that? Testing, testing. One, two, three. How about that? All right. And as I try to get my guest on, I will just share a couple things with you real quick. Dr. Wright, what's happening, man?
Well, we're not a doctor yet, but we're gonna go with it, man.
Okay, good, man. My bad. Hey, I am having the most amazingest time getting my guest on the air. So I ask that you would forgive me if I had any user error in getting you on the show.
Well, we're gonna say what the old folks used to say when I was coming up. We're gonna charge it to your head and not to your heart.
Oh, charge it to the head and not the heart.
Come on
Yeah,
now.
my brother. Hey, I sure appreciate you. First of all, before we even get started, I want to thank you for coming on the show and taking the time out to speak with me. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man.
Well, first of all, to help out a brother, I'm all about that.
Yeah,
And secondly, anytime, regardless of their background or regardless of their color, anytime that I see great educators in the field trying to make an impact and trying to help out other people, when the schedule allows, as somebody told me last night, put me in the game, coach. I said, all right, let's go.
yeah, I feel that. I feel that. All right, well, I'm gonna count you down, and then from there we'll
Okay.
get started with the show. Okay.
All right.
All right. Five, four, three, two, one. Welcome back, Flipboard fam. This is your favorite coach, Coach Jeffrey, and I have another amazing guest here tonight, Mr. Vernon Wright. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. It is my privilege, my honor, my pleasure to be around you and in your thought space and in your circle. And not only that, but the thought spaces and circles of your audience as well. I definitely think that I get cool points for being around you all.
Hey, man, we sure appreciate it. And let's go ahead and go with the first question. So, um, before we get started, let me just say that you have been an open book because you've been on so many different people's shows and you
Yeah.
shared your story with so many educators. So, just give us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So happy to do it. What a privilege, what an honor. Bachelor's degree is in economics and finance. Went into the corporate world, did that for a little while. Got to a certain point where they said, "Hey, Vernon, if you want to go to the next level, career wise, you probably need to go ahead and get an MBA." They were very cool about it. I just didn't know that I was really all that jazzed about getting an MBA at that point in my career. And I decided to go ahead and do, as one of my mentors says, I decided to do a pivot, folks. And I left business and went into education. And I laughed because my plan in education was just to go ahead and teach long enough to meet what is called down here in Texas. Of course, as you know, the way the Texas system works, the rule of 80. Okay. So years plus age equal 80, and you get a pension and you can go on and do whatever you want to do with the rest of your life. And that was really kind of the plan, and got down into where I was. And I had some people start coming to me saying, "Hey, you need to get into leadership." And I was like, "No, thank you." And they were like, "No, like really, for real, seriously, you need to get into leadership." And long story short, I surrendered. And when I say surrender, I tell it in a bad way. That's in a really, really, really good way. I surrendered to the call that God put on my life, and I have had so many different opportunities at different levels, and that has brought me here with you all today.
Excellent, excellent. Your story was filled with, and I've been following you, of course, on social media. I follow you through just like different friends that we have,
Hmm.
mutual friends. I don't think you knew that I was friends with the people who you were friends with, but we have just mutual connections online. Dr. Sarah Thomas is one.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm going to call George Kuros my friend. He may not call me his friend, but I may not be big enough to be in his circle. But those you have been with those people and on their shows, and just very Dr. Dan Cranes for the leadership of learning.
Yeah.
Those people who I admire. Why are you so passionate about leadership?
Yeah, I would tell you this, and it's such a loaded question because I could go on and on for hours. I know we don't have that much time, but you know, I'm passionate about people, And one of the things that I have found out and I've realized over the years is when great things happen in business, when they happen professionally, when they happen personally, it's when people come together. And leadership for me is not maybe the way most people would think about leadership, which is very nuts and bolts, very, as one of my colleagues used to say way back in the day, very prescriptive, right? I think it's about people, and when people come together and they make authentic connections, and they have some hustle with them, and they have belief in what they're trying to do, great things can happen. And typically, I will tell you from the other perspective, and from a different angle of having been a consultant, a speaker, a life coach, leader at the district level, what have you, right? Supporting campuses at the district level. What I found is when organizations are dysfunctional, typically somewhere in there, once we start peeling the layers back, there's some issues with trust. And wherever there are issues with trust, that means that there's some connections that people, for whatever the reasons are, they don't believe are authentic.
And I just listening to your talks. I'm going to get to the hustle part. I should probably go there next, but I do want to make sure that we talk about the book and the chapter 93 that you wrote.
Uh huh.
So let me get
Yeah.
to that question next. So I know
Okay.
that you co-authored a book and you wrote a chapter in the book. I don't have the book, although I'm going to get it. It is
Okay.
317 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
It's a little bit depending upon whether you're looking at the uh, copy in the physical version, or at some point whenever it comes out. And I think eventually it will. That book and the whole series, whenever it comes out on Kindle, I think there's a difference between kind of the number of pages in Kindle and the number of pages with the physical book. But the physical book, yeah, it's a little bit, but I will tell you this, that it's entertaining, very.
Yes. It's 100, if I'm not mistaken, 100 different authors all got together.
103.
Wow.
103 different authors. Yeah. And it's pretty interesting. It's very, very interesting. And it's a huge, huge, huge project. And, I just want to throw a quick shout out to Rick and Rebecca, um, two great individuals. And I will tell you, especially about Rick, Rick has been very upfront about his story, and from being like literally almost at the very, very bottom to now being in a place that is a really, really cool place. And his story, his testimony, his background, I tell people check into it. He's written some books and has spoken about it, but what a great inspiration. And for me, so honored and privileged to be a part of it.
Excellent. So the name of the book for those people who are listening is 100 no nonsense things that all teachers should stop doing. And your chapter is chapter 93. What is your chapter about?
Yeah, what my chapter is about is it's about administrators not being motivated to pursue administrative positions and leadership positions by money. And when because this project started, a lot of people I know now are saying, hey, it's like April, May, June, and they're talking about this book and so forth and so on. But one of the things that people may not necessarily know behind the scenes is this project really started like late summer, early fall of 2020. And when we started the project, there was a list of subjects and titles. And Rick just kind of gave them to us. And Rick said, hey, here's a spreadsheet. And I'm going to let you guys go ahead and pick whatever you feel most aligns with your experiences and where you've been and what your calling is. And that's the one that I picked because I said, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to speak about. But I will tell you though, behind the scenes, and I won't say which other chapters there were, because I don't want to infringe on anyone else's work. But there were a few chapters I had to kind of narrow down to, and there were some competing ones there. So, but I eventually I decided and went with 93.
You know, and I don't definitely want to speed through this interview, but
Hmm.
in your other interviews, you were talking about just some. You sound like you're a man of faith, and I'm a man of
Hmm.
faith, and I know the Spirit by the Spirit. And
Come on
so,
now.
when we talking about leadership, and we're talking about things that are put inside of you before the beginning of time that you were supposed to put in this generation while you're here. Some people experience imposter syndrome. And that's a real adversity for most people to get started on their dreams. Why is your moniker of believe, study, hustle, manifest, and repeat important?
Yeah, it's important because it represents the whole cycle. And let me say that one more time. It's important because it represents the whole cycle. The whole cycle of what, Vernon? It represents the whole cycle of moving from a belief in something, a concept, an idea, a dream, a hope, a desire, all the way to the point of saying, I finally achieved this. It's real. It's come to fruition. What next? Okay. And so, what I tell people is that individually, but also to collectively, once you start doing really, really, really great things and people start to see those things, in other words, there's an outward manifestation. Okay. It's outwardly seen. One of the things that people are going to do is they're going to start asking you, how'd you do this? And for individuals, sometimes we typically see that with weight loss. We see that maybe with somebody changes their style or their appearance, or they change something like that. When we start talking collectively, in a collective sense, we start talking about people that turn schools around from low performing to high performing. They even turn them around to not just high performing; they turn them around to model schools. And typically, I will tell you that when we see stuff like that at a campus level and then at a district level, one of the things we start asking is, what did you do? How did you do that? How did you get people on board? And whatever that process is, can we replicate that at other schools? Can we replicate that across a district? Can we replicate that to other districts? And so, believe, study, hustle, manifest, repeat um, comes directly from the Bible. And people may not necessarily know that, but it comes directly from the Bible. So believe. What do you believe? Study to show yourself approved. That's 2 Timothy 2:15. Hustle, because if you don't work, you
You don't
shouldn't
need.
eat. Okay, all right. We won't even go into that one, but and of course, we're not talking about people that have certain situations or special situations. We honor that and respect that, but those different situations and those different things lead us into believe, study, and hustle. But if you believe, you study, and you hustle, what should come next? We should see some manifestation, right? So, in other words, I'm working and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm hustling and so forth and so on. Then what should happen? You should manifest. And so, once we manifest, and then we have whatever the end result is that we've been waiting for and we've been believing in and we've been hustling to try to get, um, what we should then do is not say, oh, okay, well, we got that. That was really cool. All right, now time to go ahead and get on cruise control. And I mentioned this on George's podcast. I had let myself get on cruise control. And so then once we finish that, the next question to ask is, which is the repeat part, the next question to ask is, what's next? What's next for me to conquer? What's next for me to help someone out with? What's next for me to collaborate with someone on? What is next for me? Because our lives are lives that are intended to go ahead and help others. And I'll just say this real quick, and I'm saying unabashedly, unabashedly, I say this, and a great place to take notes, folks, if you're taking notes, but you don't come into any space where coach is and not be ready to take notes. You know that already, folks. All right. So, but I have dedicated my life absolutely and totally. I've dedicated my life to helping other people elevate in their lives.
Yeah. One of my unsung passions is to study a seed. And
Mm,
I was in a very bad job I shouldn't say a bad job. It was the best job I ever had, making the most money I ever had. And I had a leader who did not believe in me, and
Mm,
her and their leadership did not believe in me. And I was in a place where I had to produce.
mm,
And I just happened to run across a sermon, and this particular man
mm.
was talking about the parable of a seed. And what he said
Ah.
was, inside of every seed is a forest. And I was like,
Mm.
man, how's that? How does that make sense?
Mhm. Ooh,
So
that's good.
yeah, the crazy part about it, so when you were speaking, man, like all that just re-popped up into my spirit. It was
Come on now.
sizzling in my spirit. So anyway, so basically, and to explain that for those of you who are listening, is that everything that a tree needs is inside of a seed. And as
Yes,
long as
yes.
that seed is put in the right environment and given the things that it needs, it's going to blossom into a plant. And that plant is going to grow into a tree, and as long as it's in the right environment, it will produce fruit. And the more fruitful it is, the more seeds it will produce in the people. And in that job, what I realized was I was concerned with not being fruitful. And so
Mm.
when I focused on becoming very fruitful in that job, it opened up a whole bunch of other doors for my fruit to go and spread as far as. And I always tell people who I mentor is that I need you to mentor three other people. And when they become a leader, then that's what validates me as being a mentor to you. And I know mentorship is a big thing to you. And so I just agree with you on your outlook on those things.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I will say that as you were sharing, a couple of mentors of mine have always said this for years, and they've said it simply like this, saying what you're saying, but saying it a little bit differently. And they simply have said it this way. Another great place to take notes, in addition to what you shared, quote unquote, the seed knows its job. So let me say that again. The seed knows its job. So then, if we're not getting the harvest, the question is, first of all, have you planted a seed?
Mhm.
And then what genetic potential is within that seed? So if there's potential within that seed, which it is, that's why it's a seed, right? And then if we plant it into the ground that it needs to be planted into, then all we have to do is just make sure that the soil is right and that the watering is right. And then we just let the seed do what it's programmed to do, and that's produce a harvest. And I'll say something else that is also too out of the greatest selling book of all time. People will catch that one. But it always says this: as long as there is sunrise and sunset, okay, as long as there are the seasons on this earth, there will also too be what? Seed time
Time and harvest.
and harvest.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I feel that, but and I was listening to the podcast with George, and you were talking about you worked in a Title I school, and then you also talked about how the believe, study, hustle, and then the manifest is what you should see. But the crazy thing about people, especially children, is in that same category, is if you put the child in the right environment and you give them what they need in that environment, the amount of fruit that they're going to produce is going to be so much so that they will yield a forest. But on top of that, but on top of that, is if when you are an educator who can put people in the right environment, then kings will come to you and try to get your fruit. That's what's crazy about this situation is that you never really see, and you have never seen an apple tree run up to give you an apple. When there are some apples that you like to eat, you always go to that apple tree. And so it's the same thing with this moniker. If you are a gardener and a tender of people, then greatness will come to you simply because you're just following a simple rule. And I just like to share that. That's what I'm passionate about. Simply is looking at that.
Well, the Bible also says that, and it asks this question: do you see a man skilled in his work? He
Yes.
will stand. He will stand before kings. He
Yes.
will not stand before obscure men. And that's Proverbs 22:29. For those that are wondering where that reference is or where to go find that and look at that. But I will say this, and certainly this is not a theologian class or theologian course at seminary, because certainly I don't pretend to be a theologian. But I will say this, though, is one of my mentors says, I can read, right? And I know that if it says that, and I challenge people to do this, even if you don't necessarily say, Vernon, I'm not necessarily quote unquote religious. I just want you to go ahead and look at that and check out the versions. Check out the King James, check out the New International, check out the CEV, check out the Amplified, check out the different versions of it. And I want you to just see what that actually says. And then something else to do, something else to think about, folks, is really this. The things that are written about in the Bible, have they actually happened, or is it just theory? And I think we both know the answer to that.
Well, this is not a theologian class. And of course, you can use any book for reference. And we are in our unprecedented time currently right here in America. I'm just going to be honest with you. We are starting
Yeah.
school after a pandemic, and whatever literature you use for inspiration, we're just sharing what inspires us. And of course, I mean, there are just many different books that people use, but these are our favorites and one of our favorite quotes and some of our favorite stories. So, and you remember some of the things that inspires you. Like some people like to watch movies and they remember movie quotes, and those are the things that inspire them when the times get tough. And some people like songs, and some songs inspire you. So that's the way I look at it. But with that mindset, us coming into COVID, coming in post COVID, why is it important for you to inspire other educators, right?
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you this, you can get so busy. We can get so busy collectively. We can be so busy about doing the business of teaching that we forget. So busy about doing the business of leading schools that we forget. So busy about doing the business of leading districts. So busy about doing whatever it is that we do in education that we forget. What do we forget, Vernon? We forget that, what? Each one of us is called to do something really, really big. Now, here's the thing to think about and the thing to realize, folks. My story is my story. My calling is my calling. Now, it doesn't mean that my calling is Coach's calling. So Coach may have a different calling. And, it doesn't mean that I'm supposed to go over and try to do exactly what Coach did, because if I try to do that, it might not work. And here's the reason why it might not work. That's for Coach, not for me. But see, if Coach pursues and goes after what is for him, and then I go ahead and I go after what is for me, then guess what happens? What happens is we're both trying to do what? We're both trying to make an impact. And when I coach people, whether it's an organization, whether it's an individual, what I tell them is, when we talk about quote unquote making an impact, what we're really talking about is adding value. But I want you to think about something. How can people add value and make an impact if nobody reminds them and inspires them and keeps it at the forefront of their thinking that, what? You're great. You're awesome. This is in you. Have you stopped to think about this lately? Have you stopped to go ahead and think about, what? If I don't get clear about what I'm called to do, I'll just be sitting up here 20 years from now with these same people doing this same stuff and not have gone anywhere, and ask myself, why haven't you made any progress?
Man, that is so deep. And I'm gonna go back to we are post COVID, and there are, I think I saw a statistic, 45% of current principals said that if they could retire and never come back to education, they would. They just leave. And so there is a lot of stress on teachers, on administrators, on district level personnel who now have went through a life altering event. We have students who lost parents. We've had teachers who've lost husbands and wives. We've had district administrators who's lost parents. So many people have lost. And so now we're coming back into a situation where you at first probably had a passion, or you probably may have been losing a passion. And so now you have to come back and lead people. And so now in you leading people, what is going to inspire those people to sit and listen to you?
Yeah, the number one thing I tell people is this: it doesn't matter how much stuff you know, it doesn't matter how many degrees you have, it doesn't matter how much alphabet soup you have after your name. I'm not against those things. I have some alphabet soup after my name as well. But I often tell people this, the number one thing is make an authentic connection. Make an authentic connection, folks. And, we just presume that everybody knows how to make an authentic connection, but not everybody has that skill set. So what we have to do is we have to sit down and we have to have these conversations with people and engage them in it and ask them, hey, what does it mean to make an authentic connection to you? What does that mean? Tell me what that looks like. I'm kind of going back into when I got into coaching teachers many, 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 many moons ago. And one of the things we would always ask and use as a lead in with teachers is, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What are you doing? What are the students doing? Talk to me about what you all are doing and how you're interacting together. And then we would just let the teachers go with that and describe that scene, right? But also, too, at the same time, we have to go ahead and think about, how does that authentic connection get made? How do we do that? And if a person doesn't know how to do that, we start to give them tools. And I will say this real quick. There are three questions that obviously, I've shared quite a few different times with people in different spaces. And I'll share one of them here real quick because I know that, we have some time constraints. We need to go do something else.
Hey man, we good. We good.
Good. Okay. All right. But I'll share one of those questions right now. You say, well, Vernon, I want to get all of the information, right? I want to get all of it. Well, I'll tell you how you can get the rest of it here in a second. But one of the questions I ask people to lead in with simply is this: walk up to someone and ask them, right now, this second, what are you absolutely passionate about? Just right now, this second. And I challenge people, right? I've talked to people at the undergraduate level that are college students. I've talked to people in so many different spaces, in education, outside of education. And that's one of the three questions that I have shared with them is, and I've asked them, I said, you know what? You walk up to somebody today, somebody that you know well, and ask them, hey, right now, this second, I'm curious, what are you absolutely passionate about that you're working on? And just be quiet. And I said, now at first, when you walk up to them and you ask them that, I said, they're probably going to turn and look at you and be like, is this a joke? Is this one of those prank shows where you're pranking me, you're punking me or whatever? I said, but you assure them, no, you're not. And no, you're not pranking them. It's not a joke, like you're serious, but you want to know, right? What are you most passionate about? And I will tell you my own experience over the years of having shared this with so many different people in so many different spaces. A lot of people have said to me, over the years, Vernon, you're the first person to ask me that. And I think that's cool, right? That, hey, man, I was the first person to ask someone this. But at the same time, too, if I flip that around and I look at that from the other perspective, what I often ask myself is, like, why is that? Why has no one asked that before me in these different spaces that I've been in? So something to really, really think about. Now, if you would say, man, Vernon, that's great. Love that question. Right now, this second, what are you absolutely passionate about that you're working on? How can I get access to more pro tips? How can I get that? And what I would say is simply go to shapetherightvision.com. Now, Shape, SHAPE, THE, Wright, WRIGHT, and then Vision, VISION.com, shapetherightvision.com. When you go there, you sign up for the email list, and it's going to take you right to the audio, and free of charge, no charge to you, doesn't cost anything. But I will tell you that once you go to that audio and you listen to it, and it's a fairly short audio, but when you go to it and you listen to it and you think about all of the information that's in there, because it's compact, it's dense, it's a short amount of time, but it's a lot of information. Um, you're going to say, you know what, Vernon, this is on the money. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't say that to brag on me. I give credit to God, and I thank God for that, because God's my source.
Hey man, I think this goes back to our analogy of putting the seed in the right environment. And sometimes you have to wake people up and so that they'll know that they're not wasting time. I, I I am a firm believer is that everything we see has a purpose. There's nothing that doesn't have a purpose. And if you are not in the right environment, then you're kind of wasting your time. And so we need people like you to come and ask those very pointed questions. Hey, what are you passionate about? What are you working on right now? And if they are working on something that they are in the right environment with, and they're growing, then that's great. But sometimes people needs that wake up call. And so as I transition, the zero apology zone, tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love this question. I get asked this all the time. And simply, I say this: zeroapologyzone.com is the branding foundation of all that we do as a group collectively. And obviously, I'm a large part of that, and the founder of that movement. And so, what that becomes and what that is that is an outward symbol, that is an outward sign of all that we stand for. And simply, I say it this way: we're a voice for those without a voice. We're a voice for those with a voice, but those that are afraid to speak. And we advocate for all of those folks, unabashedly and with zero apologies. And the foundation, the core of the brand is, you guessed it, believe, study, hustle, manifest, repeat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love that. I know that you guys do a lot of good work, and if you could go back in time and let's not go. Let me not use the go back in time. How about
Yeah.
this one? What advice can you give a new educator about your journey as an educator from where you started versus where you are today?
Yeah, I'm working on a book right now, and one of the things that I will say is I was working on doing some writing earlier today, and one of the things that I was talking about, and of course I'm not going to go ahead and share all of it, but I'll give a little tidbit, a little hint, right? Is really just talking about your vision and understanding that whatever your vision is, you need to take whatever that is and then just go so much bigger than that, and understand that you have a vision, and then there's a vision larger than your vision. And we need to stop and we need to ask ourselves, hey, my vision, is it taking into account whatever the larger vision is? And if it's not, which typically it's not, then what do we need to do for our own thinking? We need to stretch that. We need to stretch that. We need to go beyond. And one of the things I'll throw in as another little pro tip for your listeners and for your audience is simply this: ask yourself, who am I reaching? How can I reach more people? How can I have more of an impact? And of course, what does impact mean? Having an impact or making an impact means adding value. And so the more people I can reach, that's the more people I can add value to. That's the more impact that I can make. And simply, that is what we would say is the word scale, SCALE. So I would recommend that, and I would say that to a new educator. And then the other thing that I would say to a new educator really is this: always be seeking understanding and clarity. And let me say that one again: always be seeking understanding and clarity. And then once you get understanding and clarity, understand that your hustle and your belief and your faith will take you so far down the road and will take you much further than you ever thought. But what does it start with? It goes back to what you have said multiple times in this podcast. And I personally have been blessed by it. And I know the listeners have as well. It really goes back to really that analogy, that metaphor of planting a seed. And so then once you plant the seed, then what happens over time is you're consistent in working that process. What's happening? The seed is growing. The seed is growing. The seed is growing. And then there's a point when guess what happens? You start to see the seed grow. You start to see the after effects, the byproducts. You start to see the outward signs of the seed growing. Now, that's not when the seed started growing. The seed was growing well before our natural eyes could go ahead and see that growth. But once we're able to see that growth, that's an outward sign that tells us, you know what, we're on the right path, we're doing the right thing. And I would encourage educators to really look at those two things. I would encourage them to look at their vision, and I would encourage them to go ahead and think about the process of how a seed grows. And you're absolutely right. A seed needs to be what? It needs to be in the right environment. And a seed needs to have that TLC. It needs to have the right soil. It needs to have the right water. It needs to have the right weather. And it needs that consistently. So if it gets that consistently, what should happen? The seed should do what? The seed should produce, or the seed should manifest. So if you say, you know what, Vernon, man, wow, that sounds good. That's great. Man, I need like a template that I can go through with the different steps to find out the different things. I'm going to say it one more time, folks. If you're taking notes, great place to take notes. Okay. Is go to shapetherightvision.com. And when you go there, you'll find the audio 10 steps to becoming a game changer. I don't make any money off of that. That's free. It's there on the website. And that was really born out of so many different people in so many different spaces, coaching individuals and organizations, people saying, you know what, Vernon, like I need some tips on like, what do I do? I need a structure. I need a plan. And one day I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and package this. And I did. And so that is 10 steps to becoming a game changer. Go to shapetherightvision.com, get that, download it, listen to it. It's a short listen. It's not that long, but I am telling you, I don't want to say I'm 100% sure and guarantee, but let me say I'm a little short of guaranteeing that you're probably going to listen to that more than once. And you're probably going to say, you know what, this is good stuff. So I want people to be blessed by that. I really do want them to be enriched by it.
Yeah, and I definitely am. Man, I surely appreciate you coming on the show. I know you've given us the right vision.com, but where else can our listeners find you at?
Yeah, you know, the easiest place for them to go to, and again, if they want to go ahead and go directly to that link, they can do that. That's shapetherightvision.com. But if you say, you know what, Vernon, like I'm interested in your clothing brand, I'm interested in the 10 steps, I'm interested in the pro tips when you've been on different podcast appearances and all the different spaces that you're in, the easiest way is to go to my Linktree account. And that is linktr.ee/the right leader altogether. So one more time, linktr.ee/the right leader. And when you go to my Linktree account, you're going to see all of that. You're going to see the 10 steps link. You're going to see zero apology zone. You're going to see pro tips. You're going to see Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, you're going to see everything where I am, almost everything. I got some other stuff in the hopper that I'm not quite ready to go ahead and release publicly yet, but I'm going to tell you it's good stuff, and that'll be on the Linktree as well in the future.
So I'll tell you what, man, when we write the article about this podcast, I will put your Linktree in there and people will be able to find you. We didn't even talk about your clothing. You have a clothing brand. You're writing a book. You own everybody's podcast who I listen to. And that you have I've never seen, I didn't even know you can do that you can put playlists of other people's podcasts that you've been on. You don't even need your own podcast because you own so many different people's podcasts. I'm like, God dang, that is wild. I never thought about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you about that playlist idea because I don't take any credit for that. But one morning, I was in, which I do every morning, spend a time of meditation and reflection and quiet time, and then a time in the Word. And God gave me an idea. The Holy Spirit did. And he's like, you know what, Vernon? Take all of those podcasts you've been on, take all of the links, put together a playlist, and whatever that playlist is, whatever that website address is, that URL, take one of the domains that you own and point that domain to that playlist. And yeah, so I get a kick out of that. I give God the full credit for that. That was God's idea, not mine. He just gave it to me, and I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and I'll follow that out. So yeah, I need to go check on that today. I haven't checked on it today yet, but it's growing. The number
It
of
is
plays are
growing.
growing.
Man,
Yeah.
I say, man, this dude, this is lot. Hey, you know what? The good Lord gives good ideas. Let me put it like that.
Well, as one of my mentors told me, he said, he asked this rhetorical question. He said, there are a lot of books that are out there, a lot of strategy books. And then he asked this question. He said, is there a better strategist than the Holy Spirit? And I was like, I don't think that there really is. And so it's kind of funny that you said that because that reminds me of him. So yeah, I got that idea one morning, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go with it. And it has turned out to be like every single other idea that God has given me. It's turned out to be a phenomenal idea. And I'm just humbled. I'm humbled and I'm honored about all the people that are fans, the people that are followers, the people that say, you know what, Vernon, um, man, I've been so enriched and I've been so just elevated from your work. Like that's very, very, very humbling, and it's very. I'm immensely grateful for that. Let me say that because sometimes it's a little surreal because I have to remind myself that you're like people follow you. I told somebody the other day, I said, I had to kind of remind myself that like I have quite a few people on Twitter and a little bit on Instagram too. I have quite a few people and they're just waiting to see what I'm gonna say. And that's a little humbling, but I have to remind myself of that because I just get busy and what I get busy and just doing exactly what's on my shirts. I get busy with what believing, studying, hustling, manifesting, and repeating, and I stop to really think about that process.
Yeah, and that's a very good thing, man. And I appreciate you being a believer, someone who is focused and who has their seed in the right environment. That's inspiring to someone like myself as I go every day to make sure my seed is in the right place. So, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you this is that the honor, the privilege, and the pleasure is all mine. You're doing great work. You're doing phenomenal work. You're just, what can I say other than, coach, you're the bomb.com. All
Oh,
right. you're now
thank
don't,
you.
and that was just a little joke, folks. Don't go to bomb.com. Don't do that. Don't do that.
No, don't do
Because
that.
I don't want to be responsible for somebody says there's some
Yeah,
crazy stuff that came on my computer or whatever. But I do want to say this though, in all seriousness. You're an influencer, my man.
thank you,
You
sir.
really are, and more than you probably even see yourself as being. And it's just an honor to be in your space and to learn from you and to learn with you, man. It really is, and I'm humbled by that.
Hey, well, thank you, man. So, just keep that in mind. I might need a job reference one day.
Well, I will tell you this, my man. If you list me, here's what I'm going to tell you. First of all, you don't even need to ask my permission. You can go ahead and list me. Okay. And then once you list me, I'm going to go ahead and ask you what do you want me to tell the folks? Because what I'm gonna ask them at the end of the interview or the phone call reference is, I have one last question for you. And I know I did this one time and it just freaked a lady out. And she asked me, she said, "Yeah, sure, Mr. Wright. What's the one question you have?" And this is a great place where you're gonna laugh on this one, folks, because it was a little unorthodox. But I asked her, I said, "The last question I have for you, ma'am, is simply this: why have you not hired this person?" And she was kind of like taken back a little bit, and she was kind of like, "Well, you know what?" And she started kind of chuckling or laughing. But I said that, and that was a little bit of an attempt at humor, which is a pretty decent one, I think.
Yeah.
But what it really was communicating was, you know what, ma'am, you've got a legit candidate before you, and if you don't take this candidate, I assure you, ma'am, someone else will.
Somebody else will.
So somebody else will. So yeah, because what we experience in education is similar to what is experienced in other sectors. And I say it this way, as somebody who's been on the other side of that job fair table in so many different places and so many different venues over the years. When you're on the other side of that job fair table, when you're at a campus and you have vacancies to fill, you want the best talent. And it doesn't just mean people that have the best credentials or what have you on paper. We're looking for people that are legit people. I'm looking for people that know how to connect with kids. They know how to be the SEL that we think all educators should have and should be and should know about, but some don't. They should have that in addition to all the credentials and the other things. So, I say this to those folks that are out there, having the right credentials is good. That's important. You need to have those things, obviously, for the different states, and particularly here in the state of Texas. But I will say this to you, folks: talent, and really legit good talent, is part of what is and part of what makes someone a game changer. But again, if you want all of the steps to becoming a game changer, go to shapetherightvision.com, or you just simply go to the link tree the coach is going to put in the description.
And the article. Mr. Wright, surely appreciate you for coming on the show, my brother. And thank you again for coming on.
The pleasure, the honor, and the privilege is all mine. And I will tell you, folks, enjoy, be blessed, and what a blessing it is from me to you to be in your space and to learn from you.